I was pretty excited to get my hands on the Caligula Effect. It's an exclusive PlayStation Vita game that's an Atlus-published JRPG which includes a story led by Persona series veteran Tadashi Satami, who was the writer of the first 3 Persona games. So this game pretty much had my name written all over it. Much to my surprise, the game brings a lot of nuance to the table. However, some of its minor shortcomings are enough to bog down the experience. Leading up to launch, I saw a handful of concerns about the Caligula Effect regarding how the game runs. Lately, we've been seeing a ton of JRPGs that make their way to Vita, but run just terribly. Most of that is due to game makers developing from the ground up for the PS4, and then porting over a wonky PlayStation Vita version. Luckily, the Caligula Effect was developed specifically for the PlayStation Vita, therefore the game actually runs pretty smooth. I didn't experience frame rate drops very often. Unfortunately though, some glitches did occur. Whether it was me walking through walls or seeing NPCs floating, I sensed a lack of polish throughout the game. But with all that being said, it's not an ugly game, especially for running on 6-year-old hardware. The Caligula Effect has a unique story to say the least. It's about a group of students who are trying to escape from a virtual world called Mobius. What's interesting is the world is designed to be the perfect place to live, but these students just aren't satisfied, which I personally thought made for a really interesting story. The world is run by a virtual pop star named Mew, I think that's how it's pronounced anyway, along with her group of evil music producers and an army of digiheads, which are just the main enemies in the game. Overall, there's a lot of dark themes and enthralling story pieces that I was constantly engaged with. I won't dive deep into what these are to avoid spoiling the game or tarnishing your experience of it. The main cast of students call themselves the Go Home Club, and they're pretty much your typical cast of characters set in a Japanese role-playing game. There's the bro dude, the brains guy, and the pretty girl that kicks ass. All of the main cast is actually pretty fun to hang out with. But not only is there the main cast of students, but along with them, there's over 500 NPCs that you can recruit into your party to be used in combat. But there's only 4 character slots during battle, so you have to choose wisely. The game offers social relationships similar to the Persona series. These relationships are called your casualty links. However, they're not nearly as intricate or thoughtfully crafted as the social links in the Persona series. I didn't find many of the side stories to be as emotionally heavy as the story arcs in the Persona titles, which was a pretty big letdown. Not to say there's anything wrong with the casualty link system, it's just not very interesting overall. I do think it's a nice touch though. It changes up the pacing of the game, which I appreciated, not to mention there are some funny conversations that you can have via texting. Another interesting element of the story, keep in mind this is a virtual world, so no one is actually how they seem. A 10th grade girl could actually be a 40-year-old dude in real life, and sometimes you can actually figure out who these people really are, which is a lot of fun, but I'll let you discover this aspect of the game for yourself. Now, on to the most important aspect of the Caligula Effect, the gameplay. This is where I thought the game shined the brightest. The Caligula Effect offers a turn-based battle system like one I've never personally played, where timing is literally everything. In these battles, you can see how your string of attacks will work out before you actually make them. Strategically planning out your attacks with all 4 of your teammates is a lot of fun. You can even string together different fighters' moves perfectly using a time slider to match them up, and that results in critical hits. Example, one fighter uses an uppercut on a digihead, lunging him up into the air, and another will use a skill called rapid fire with his dual pistols, weakening the enemy. Then, another fighter will do a final blow called Deadeye with her bow and arrow. It's all extremely intricate and full of possibilities and a ton of fun. Nothing feels quite better than executing a boss using your whole squad's unique abilities, or taking out a swarm of enemies in one turn by performing a string of critical hits. There's also a bunch of skills you can unlock for each type of fighter. These are obtained by getting skill points from fights, so there's a lot of new attacks and strategies to think about while you're progressing your levels with your characters. If I had to say one negative thing about the gameplay, it's that sometimes battles can go on a little long, which can get a little annoying if you're just trying to make your way across the map. One thing I personally loved about the game was the soundtrack. Each new area in the Caligula Effect has a new song, and most of them are really catchy. If you're familiar with the Persona series J-pop songs, these are very similar, and sometimes even better. There's 2 different versions of a song in each area, one with vocals and one without. The vocals will fade in when you're in battle, and when you're outside of battles, it's usually just synth or piano as the main rhythm. But while I do love the songs featured in the game, they can get a bit repetitive as you'll be in the same area for long periods of time. Either way though, great sound design overall. So at the end of the day, it's easy to compare the Caligula Effect to the Persona series given the story writer and the Atlus association. While the game does hit the same tone and sometimes charm of the Persona series, they're wildly different from one another. The Caligula Effect falls short in terms of offering interesting side stories and meeting the same polish that the Persona series has set. However, the game still offers fun characters, an interesting main story, and unique, engaging turn-based gameplay. If you're a fan of JRPGs or you're looking for something unique in the gameplay department, I highly recommend it.